Penn State On Demand is a service of Penn State Public Broadcasting, and now you can support WPSU when you shop online. Visit WPSU.org/shop to make purchases from national online retailers, and WPSU will receive a portion of the sale with no extra cost to you. So start your online shopping at WPSU.org/shop.
Good evening. This is a special edition of Pennsylvania Inside Out. Fourth Fest, celebrating the nation's independence. Thank you for joining us. I'm David Price. Our fascination with pyrotechnics as part of celebration has its origin in China, where fireworks were invented sometime around or before the 10th century. Scholars don't really agree on the date. In this country, the earliest settlers celebrated important events by lighting fuses and firing rockets into the sky long before the Revolutionary War gave us Independence Day. It's time again to celebrate that day and all of that means for this country. Here in central Pennsylvania, out here in the middle of alleged nowhere, that celebration is going to be punctuated by a fireworks display that is consistently ranked among the best in the country. Fourth Fest, a precisely choreographed 45-minute pyrotechnic display that takes about a year to pull off.
Officially, we start Labor Day. We work from Labor Day till Christmas to put all the choreography together.
They start creating the music, the songs, picking out the songs. They have to have their work done, I think, by November. They have to be done by November because the shells have to be ordered by December.
How many man hours or people hours is in this, I could not tell you.
Manpower. Without it, we couldn't set this up. So we have a barrage of screw guns and manpower out here. We average probably 300 to 350 volunteers a year between setup and all-important cleanup.
First of all, we have to move everything out here, which we have stored in 4 trailers. We have to unload those trailers and inventory all of our mortar tubes, which are built into racks. And then we distribute those racks to the proper locations on the field. It just isn't brought out here and dropped. Everything has a location and everything's put in that location. There are probably somewhere close to 9,000, 9,500 tubes, which will each have their own individual shell. And then we have another section called the fronts, which will either have another couple of thousand shells. And the fronts in our program are as large as some, in terms of numbers, of some shows that are done around the country. They are then constructed and put together by our carpentry crews. The product comes in, which are the actual shells, the fireworks themselves. Each of those pieces of fireworks has to be fused or squibbed or electro-matched, as they call it today, because this show is all fired electronically.
The system itself is called Fire One. They'll electronically fire every single shell, all 11,000 plus of them, on the field at the exact time that they need to go up to synchronize them to the musical score. And we'll sit down and go through each song individually, note by note, and pick out, we want this to happen here, we want that effect to happen on that beat. We sit down and do that as a team, and then I'll sit down and take the team's ideas and enter that into the computer system.
We're choreographed, so things have to be exact. And when I mean exact, I mean to the 10th of a second. You know, as the shell lights, it goes up. Well, it has to rise till it bursts. In choreography, we need to know what that time is, so we're out here doing timing tests and timing shells and new shells. We use 4 laptop computers with 4 unique firing systems to control the field. We have backups to backups. This would virtually be impossible to hand fire. Run around with a fusee for 11,000 shells, we'd have some tired people. We fire at a rate of 4 shots per second to music. And when the finale starts, we're gonna have a little over a minute at 40 shells a second.
We have different set pieces going up this year. In years past, we've had the American flag, Statue of Liberty, a rotating wheel. We also have more that's down low and up close to the front than ever before. And that's where we're really able to control and to do some of the intimate stuff. Some of the very well timed, some of the sequencing of our shells happen in the fronts. And we've got probably about 25% more than what we did last year.
This has speed, size, the ground will pound and pound and we'll hear thuds and bangs, and we'll just light the sky up. We use unique angles. We can fire multiple shells at one time, which is very difficult to do in any other situation. And we have the great volunteers. This is an all-volunteer show. Most people pay to get that set up. This is a labor of love for the community.
It is, as Ed Sullivan would say, a really big show. And joining me now are two of the key people involved in Fourth Fest. Bernie Kiesling, the Executive Director of Central Pennsylvania July 4th Incorporated, and also Nancy Silvas, the chair of the Fourth Fest Celebrations team. Thank you both very much for joining us. Now, I said at the offset that this Fourth Fest fireworks display is acknowledged as one of the best in the country. Says whom?
Well, the Wall Street Journal years ago did an article on us and declared us to be one of the better shows. Travel magazine went around the country and took some surveys of some of the better shows, and we got mentioned in those commentaries. So it was a real treat for us.
Especially way out here in the alleged middle of nowhere. Now, Nancy, your role is the celebrations chair, and looking at this, it seems like one great big celebration, but there is sort of a division there. What is it that you are charged with doing?
Well, the 4th of July is 24 hours long, so we'd like to extend the party beyond just the pyrotechnics show, which of course we have to wait for darkness to see. So we start the party early in the morning and celebrate with a 4K race, which we'll talk a little bit more about later. And it involves education, entertainment, involvement with the community, kids' activities, the community becoming involved, numerous aspects.
Now, looking at this, having just arranged a wedding a year ago, you know, it's a big party and everybody comes by and says, hey, this was great, thanks for coming by. But it was quite a feat to pull off, but I think nothing compared to what it is that you do. What needs to be accomplished for this one day?
Well, David, when you organized the wedding, did you have to have 22 documents together to get permits from both a township and a university to get approval to hold your event, set up your tents, and organize a massive pyrotechnic show? It's permitting, it's organizing police services, parking, EMS, trash collection, cleanup crews. There is an awful lot to putting on an event. It's not just walk in the door and then leave. And we have to organize all of that.
It's nice that the guest can do that.
I think the other issue is that we don't have control over a lot of the things. Being here at Penn State's campus, we have to work with a lot of folks to make sure things come together, whereas a wedding you kind of can pick and choose. We can't always pick and choose. And working with the volunteers is very different than with a family, perhaps.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
I know I have a wonderful team of folks that come together with ideas, so we have a year-long planning process just to generate ideas and involve people we think they're going to be able to help us.
Now, you mentioned the word family, and in reading through your website and your other literature, the words family-oriented show up often. What exactly is in your mind family-oriented with regard to this?
We want to provide an offering that every member of the family can hopefully remember many years from now and take away from the day and understand better what it is to have our independence as a country, perhaps learn about our heritage. I know on our celebrations team, we try to have an activity that people of all ages might enjoy, whether it's crafts, the pyrotechnic demonstration, a certain type of band, a singing group, so that every member of the family can enjoy the day leading up to this wonderful pyrotechnic show.
This pyrotechnic show, as it concludes anyway, started some time ago, back in the mid-90s. Is that right? Can you run us through a little bit of the quick history, Bernie?
Well, if the mayor were here, he would tell you it started long before that. He would tell you about Alpha Fire Company shooting off fireworks in the 100 block of Allen Street. But this size show, in terms of the pyrotechnics, did start, I believe, in the early 90s. And it was done by Dan Barker and his family. And the show grew bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think it finally grew so big that it took a much larger organization and team to help organize it. And so in 2002, the nonprofit organization, of which we're all a part now, was formed, and we transitioned from the Barker family to the Central Pennsylvania Fourth Fest.
A little bit of a rough go. I'm recalling headlines, and I don't even remember what the issues were. There was a hiccup there at the beginning of the transition. Can you refresh my memory on that one?
Well, I can talk a little bit about it because I wasn't here. So certainly what I can pass on is only hearsay, but there was a little bit of a transition, and it's a very technical feat to pull off this pyrotechnics, and there has to be fabulous and excellent communication among so many different people, so many different groups. And I think during that first year of transition, there were some communication glitches, and it caused the show not to go off as perfect as everyone had hoped. And believe me, from what I've heard, that was very disappointing to everyone who was involved in trying to organize that show and do the pyrotechnics. But since then, it's been, it hit the ground, and boy, oh boy, you can either walk away from something that doesn't work, or you can make darn sure you aim for perfection. And the team has been awesome since that first year, and it keeps getting better and bigger and more glorious every year, and they're extremely well organized.
So one of the things, you mentioned the team, and the team is not just a core group of people. I mean, it's a really large group of folks, but it is businesses, it's the town and gown, as we call it here, living near Penn State, and of course the individual volunteers. Let's sort of break it down. What role did the businesses play? Obviously, money.
The businesses play two key roles. Certainly, they help us dramatically with the funding. Without that, we really couldn't make the event happen. So they provide a tremendous amount of funding. But what they also do is they end up giving us volunteers, David. Once they give us some money, that's only half the hook. The other half is the hook is when they come out and they offer to volunteer. And they only have to volunteer with 2 or 3 people. And then the next year it's 7 or 8 people. The next year it's 10 people. Just because they understand how much fun it is to do this event and how much the volunteer power helps drive it. We're kind of like a hybrid vehicle, right? We've got 2 sources of fuel. It's the sponsors with their money, and it's our volunteers with their energy.
I think too, it adds an enrichment component to the whole day. In other words, the community, it's such a wonderful community event, and so many people in this community are very proud of the Fourth Fest. And I think the more involvement we have from area businesses, the better of an entire event it is. I know in my area, they sponsor quite a few of the activities, and it makes it so much easier for our team when we can rely on them to be there. And I think it's just growing with more community involvement with the corporations.
How much money does this thing cost?
Well, I look at it and I look at 3 elements of it. There's a cash element that you have to raise the cash because you have to pay the bills. There's another element that says if you don't get the in-kind contributions, you have to pay cash for them. So the in-kind is so valuable to us. And then the third part is all the labor cost, and that's our volunteers. So if you take a look at it, it's probably a little over $200,000 for the cash side. We get an equal amount in in-kind contributions, which are fabulous. And then if we were to value our volunteer hours at any rate, you're going to come to an equal amount or more in terms of the volunteer hours. So if we had to pay for everything, it would be quite an expensive event. We really have to pay for a third of it out of the cash side.
You talk a little bit about Penn State's role in making this possible.
They're fabulous. We couldn't say enough about Penn State to let us use their facilities.
We couldn't do it without
We couldn't
them.
do it without it. I mean, it's just the most wonderful setting to have the event, to now have the pyrotechnics out in the VIP viewing area field. Without Penn State, it just wouldn't be as nice as it certainly is. And they make a little contribution to us also. They help in terms of not just providing the facilities, but they make a little monetary contribution to us. And it's wonderful. It is just, it's a partnership with Penn State.
I know that a few years ago they tried one of these landmark things. Of course, Mount Nittany is a landmark for Penn State alums in State College and Center County. So there were a few years ago, you fired some shells off of Mount Nittany, and you said, speak of that historically, David, before we went on the air. Why, tough shot?
Well, if it wasn't a tough, it was easy to push the button to make it work. But if those volunteers that we saw in the video, if you asked them about that experience, their eyes would light up like a pinball machine, remembering how they got those shells, how they got the boxes, how they got the mortars up to Mount Nittany. There's no direct roads up to top of Mount Nittany.
Uphill is challenging with all those.
Yeah. Put some explosives on your back and walk up the side of a mountain. You bet.
Yeah. It may have been spectacular, but it was
Logistically quite a challenge.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, you mentioned the volunteers. Volunteers absolutely make this thing possible. Where did the volunteers come from?
Oh my goodness, from all over this area as well as from out of town. We have a gentleman on the field who spends 2 weeks every year on his vacation coming up from Florida and spending time on the field. We have volunteers that work all year long, monthly meetings. I know my team meets monthly. And then we have volunteers that help us on the actual day of the event who aren't involved all year long but want to help out and be part of this biggest all-volunteer fireworks show. So they come and work for 4 or 5 hours helping with anything from entertainment to the race.
We have about 16 board members that work full-time all year on this.
Wow.
And then there's about 35 core team members that meet all year, like Nancy's talking about the members on her team. They really help organize the event. But then the other 90% of the volunteers jump in at the day of the event or that 2 weeks before from the pyrotechnic side to make it all possible.
And coming up on July 4th, when the sky erupts, it'll be more than sparks, flames, and booms. It is a visual presentation of selfless teamwork.